Right. So just, one thing. I particularly have an aversion to when people say, "Oh, I'm a video artist."
Yeah.
It's like somebody saying I'm an oil painter, and that's done. you don't. It's a medium, right?
Right.
So whatever medium is best suited to tell your story. So video is literally just another medium.
Right.
So for instance, just to give you an example of one of the video works is by an artist called Mona Hatoum.
Okay.
She's a Palestinian who was born and brought up in Lebanon and was visiting the UK when war broke out, and she never went back home.
Okay.
This particular video has her filming her mother's body, still photographs of her mother's body, which she then puts together.
Yeah.
And overlaid with the text from her mother's letters, which was the only mode of communication between the two of them, between Lebanon and England, written in the Arabic script, and Mona then translates these letters out in English and reads them out. Now something like this, with the sound of the artist, the sort of immediacy and the intimacy of seeing her mother's body, the script laid out in front of the body, which acts as almost a sort of barbed wire, which separates you, the viewer, from the story, and also Mona, as you may well imagine. And you hear of the mother in her letters talking about things like the post office being bombed in Beirut, and she doesn't know when the next letter will ever get to her daughter. And something like that would be difficult perhaps to put across in another medium, because often then things tend to get illustrative. You were illustrating a concept, and art's moved beyond that.
Right.
It's not illustrative.
Okay, curious though, does the installation change every time it goes into different cities?
Yes, it does, because every space has changed. Though I have to say that while all the work can't be placed exactly next to each other, there are certain themes that are running through it.
Right.
So questions of language, the idea of what a mother tongue is or isn't, whether it's relevant anymore, the migration of people, what the notion of a citizen is, whether all citizens are equal in the eyes of the state.
Right.
Migration, so in fact Anthony's work in it, Home, while it actually is two photographs of his aunt and uncle and cousin, isn't it, praying inside the home, and I'll leave you to tell the story.
Well, Ireland's a good example of this notion of migration, because it goes through waves. In the 19th century, 3 million people migrated to America. So Irish people are now all over the world. I won't go into great detail because it's quite a complex story, but in the case of Ireland now as well, since the economic collapse in Ireland, it's interesting. If you leave Dublin today, there's 2 flights that go to Dubai, to a huge hub, and then people are going to Australia and New Zealand and pretty much all over the world. But going back to those photographs, it was a time when some people didn't have a choice if they could move or not. And in this particular case, it's a family who's dreaming, like my cousin's dreaming of being in America. But it's a distant dream, he can't afford to go, and it's just that kind of idea of what do you do if you can't actually leave home? How do you make the best of things? So in that series of photographs, it's almost like a stage set, so you're looking into these rooms of people's houses, and on the walls are adorned with Americana and all these kind of iconic images that talk about other countries, and it makes references to the everyday life and the aspirations of these young people who, although they want to move, they're stuck in this kind of existence.
Right. I always marveled at people that could fit a story into one little picture. And it's really curious, because we did see one of Anthony's photos before in the makeup room, which you will see later on. But we're going to a quick commercial break on that, and we'll be back with more of Anthony, Manika, and of course, Latika.
Yeah.
I knew their names. But then that's when I painted everything, and everyone said, wow, you're a brilliant artist, probably better than Van Gogh. Welcome back to Good Morning Sri Lanka. In case you just tuned in, I was just having a conversation with our folks. Our guests here are to speak about Colombo Art Biennale and their installation, Homeland. So we're talking about that because it's happening today, later on today. Well, just to introduce you again to our guests, we have Manika van der Pooten back in the studio. Yay. Our guests are half like an audience, they're half asleep, so don't mind them. Get up. All right, so Anthony Haughey, welcome back to the show, and Latika Gupta.
Hi.
All right, so I was just about to ask Anthony. Right, so you said you not only take photographs, but you also do video art as well.
Sure.
Your take on video art. I know it's really hard to transition for a photographer to go into videography and a videographer to go into photography.
Well, it's not. I think Latika nailed that down pretty well.
Yeah.
For a lot of contemporary artists, it's not the medium. It's not painting. It's not sculpture. Video is just another means of expression. Photography is as well. So it really depends on the idea at any particular time. And the work in Homelands is a series of photographs, but for the Colombo Art Biennial I'm making an installation which consists of both photographs and video and sound and text, because that is the best way to express a particular idea or a particular point of view. So it can be just as much about audiences as well. I mean, to give an example, we were talking about what contemporary art is earlier, and it means a lot of things to a lot of people, but the idea that one can bring an audience closer to the work is also important. In some elements of art, for example, called relational art or dialogical art, it's literally the object disappears. So we're no longer talking about a painting or a sculpture or a photograph. We're talking about how we relate to people. And in that relationship, we're maybe getting at some contemporary issue that's emerged in society.
From the mediums that you've tried, when it comes to photography or filmmaking, which one do you think has had the better effect or a bigger effect on the person that's looking at your art?
Oh, that's a hard question to answer. You'd have to ask the audience. I mean, they are specific. I think what you can say is increasingly audiences do go and watch and listen and go to view contemporary art. I think we can see that quite well. On the other hand, you could talk about photography in different terms, because people can relate to photography from the family album all the way up to contemporary art, so that maybe there's an easier way in for people. That doesn't mean that it's less complex. It just means that the way that it's read, the way that it's understood, is open to more people because they understand the language. You can pick up your smartphone and take a picture of your child.
Instagram.
There you go. At the same time, photography in popular culture is such a huge phenomenon, and it's distributed widely. We can think about it as a mass communication tool.
And I think particularly now with digital communication, World Wide Web, that all of that makes it much more accessible, and you can use it in different ways. I mean, kids of 10, 12 are kind of really tech savvy, so
that's true. My 10-year-old.
It's kind of
insane. But all right, so Manika, you are into photography as well.
Yes.
So being the project manager here, what's it like? Okay, now would you ever tell Anthony, I don't know, this photo really doesn't say much?
Well, it's not about the photo; it's about the work, as, how it, how if something works as a piece. And for me, that's it's about narratives, about telling stories in whatever way. So it's the single photo works in kind of photojournalistic kind of where news photography, for instance, where you think, wow, that sort of tells the whole thing. But documentary photography, there's a million different types of photography. So so it's about if I'm looking at a piece, a work, whether it sort of speaks to me. It may speak to me, but may not speak to other people. It's all very subjective, really. I think.
Let me ask you this: Homelands. Now, this is it's still blowing my mind. I can't grasp around. There's so much of detail that you accumulated into one little piece of installation, piece of art.
Well, it's not little.
Oh, it's not little. Okay, so it's big. So that's something. I'm a good detective, I know. But all right. So the installation. What made you get involved with Homelands?
Well, because I've been involved. It was more that it's a long story, but
I have time.
So I've been working in photography in different ways, and I came to work with Homelands because it's an exhibition that's produced by the British Council, and so they commissioned me to kind of work on it, to bring it to Sri Lanka, and also to kind of help install it in Pakistan and various places. I mean, I didn't do it personally, but kind of got people to do it from here. So I was actually commissioned to work on it, and they approached me because I've worked for the British Council on other exhibition projects before. So
interesting. right, Latika, could you tell me when you first came with the idea, Homelands? All right, so you said that it changes every single, like the mediums change from place to place that you move.
The display changes.
The display.
The work is all the same. That having been said, it was a larger exhibition in India.
Okay.
So it's a slightly abbreviated version that traveled on to South Asia. So the exhibition is the same. It's just that the display changes based on, of course, the demands of the space that we're showing it in.
Okay. In Sri Lanka, when it comes to putting that story, like you said, you take so much of pieces out sometimes and you would add them in. Again, you have to retell that piece of art together. When you came to Sri Lanka, how did you set that up?
So it's 19 artists in
19?
the exhibition, 19, yeah.
Wow.
And so, for instance, one work of art, it's a series of 20 photographs. Anthony, which we may count as one work, is actually two images, two pictures. So it's actually a lot of pieces, if we're talking about kind of objects of art, right? But what was your question again? Sorry.
What I'm saying is, like, is it hard to string all these photographers or artists together? Because you have to overlook what's coming together.
Yeah, so, but the thing is, it's not just a question of overlooking or overseeing the technicalities of display.
Right.
So the idea is to create a story, right? So in viewing an exhibition which has a conceptual sort of theme underpinning it, there are ways to kind of judge how somebody from the audience will walk into the room. So if they take a left turn, let's say, and look at object A on the wall, then object B, object C, it's like the residue or the memory of the first two things you've seen stays with you. So by the time you come to the third thing, you're slowly building up this, not really a single narrative, but you're building up this story or many stories, right? So it's like all these 19 artists' work come together to perhaps raise a whole bunch of questions of what homelands may be in the 21st century. So it's really about creating these different, and of course you can walk off into another direction in the room, and then that must still make sense or bring up another set of questions. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so if I was to walk in tomorrow, or today.
11 o'clock today, in a few hours, I'll be rushing from...
Totally knew that. 11 o'clock today, so all we have to do is look for the...
No, so today if you come in at 11 o'clock, things will be much simpler for you, because I will be taking people who walk in at 11 today through the exhibition, talking about the work. Anthony will be there too, Manika will be there too, so...
Yeah, you should come and join us. It's going to be a great guided tour.
It's a private little tour.
Public tour, not private. It's open for everyone.
So anybody who walks in through the...
so at 11 o'clock today.
Land Art Center.
And then you also will be spanning out throughout the 9 days of the Colombo Art Biennale?
Well,
we have there is a program which involves Latika and Anthony for the duration of the Biennale, but Latika's only here for till Saturday. So but she's packing a lot in.
Awesome.
So in the evening she's on a panel talking about
curating with
curating practice. And then on Saturday morning, Latika and Anthony will be in conversation at the Goethe Institute talking about his work and about homelands.
That's going to be awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Down for that.
And then Anthony and I will probably be going to Jaffna, to the Jaffna University to do a program with some the students there. And then he comes back on Friday. And then Friday afternoon he's got a program, and then Saturday morning